Everyone grows potatoes and everyone loves them, but I am going to tell you about a crop that in many ways beats the potato, that is easier to grow, hardier, more prolific, and that needs almost no care at all, and yet hardly a soul grows it anymore. It is the Jerusalem artichoke, or the sunchoke as some call it, a humble knobbly tuber that grows like a weed, comes back year after year, stores itself right in the ground through the winter, and gives you a tremendous harvest from a tiny patch for almost no work. The old people knew it well. Most folks today have never grown a one. Today I'm going to show you this crop, why it beats the potato in so many ways, how to grow it, how to keep it in bounds, and how to cook it. I am Emily Yoder, and I have gardened this Lancaster County ground my whole life, the way my people always have, and I keep a patch of these every year, for there is no easier nor more dependable food crop I know. Now, I will be fair to the potato, for I love a potato too, and in plain truth, most folks like the taste of a potato better. It is the milder, everyday food, and always will be. But for the sheer ease of growing, the hardiness, the way it feeds you year after year with hardly any tending, the Jerusalem artichoke beats the potato handily, and that is what I want to show you. My grandfather kept a patch of these in a far corner of the garden my whole boyhood, and I remember it well. Those great tall stalks topped with yellow flowers towering over everything, taller than a man, taller than two men, a little forest in the corner. And I remember going out with him in the dead of winter, the rest of the garden bare and frozen and finished, and digging down into that one patch with a fork, and turning up those knobbly tubers fresh and firm out of the cold ground. Food in the depth of winter from a garden that gave nothing else. He never fussed over that patch, never sprayed it nor coddled it. It just grew and gave and came back year on year, the most faithful thing in his whole garden. He used to say it was the crop that would feed you when nothing else would, and he was right. That patch had been in that same corner longer than I had been alive. That is the kind of crop I want to give you today. Quick word before I go further. The old methods my family uses, there is more of it than fits in any one video. I gathered the whole of it into a book at emilyyoder.com. The book is the long version. If you want it, it is there. I will not mention it again. Let me first tell you the ways this crop beats the potato, for they are real. The first is how prolific it is, how much food it gives from how little ground. From a tiny patch no bigger than a few feet square, planted with just a handful of tubers, you can dig 20 pounds and more come fall, a great heaping bucketful from that little space. For the food it gives from the room it takes, there are few crops in all the garden that can match it. Plant 10 little tubers in the spring and dig up a wheelbarrow heaped full come the fall. And the wonderful part is, it gives like this with hardly any help. In a corner of poor or part-shaded ground where many crops would sulk. Put it in good full sun and rich ground, and it gives even more, a near unbelievable yield. But even neglected in a poor spot, it will outgive most anything else you could plant there. Pound for pound and foot for foot, there are few more generous plants you can put in the ground. The second way it beats the potato is hardiness, for this is about the toughest, most bomb-proof plant you will ever grow. It stands the cold wonderfully, growing well from the cold northern gardens, clear down to the warm south, and it suffers almost no diseases nor pests. Where your potatoes get the blight and the potato beetle strips them to bare stems, the Jerusalem artichoke just romps along untroubled year after year, near impossible to kill. You plant it toward the end of winter and watch it go, and it asks almost nothing of you. This is a real boon, mind, for the potato is a fussy thing by comparison, wanting its sprays against the blight and its watch kept for the beetle, a crop that can be lost to disease in a bad year. The sunchoke shrugs all that off. I've never once had to spray nor doctor mine against a thing. Never lost a crop of it to disease nor pest in all my years. It just grows, faithful and untroubled, which for a busybody with much else to tend is worth a great deal. But here is the third way, and to my mind the best of all, the way that makes it the easiest crop in the garden. You do not have to dig it up and store it like a potato. The tubers can stay right there in the ground all winter long, and you go out and dig up just what you need when you need it, fresh from the cold earth all through the winter. The ground is your root cellar. No special storage, no shelves of potatoes going soft and sprouting in a bin. Just leave them in the earth and lift them at your convenience as you want them for the pot. That is a wonderful thing, a crop that stores itself, fresh and waiting right where it grew. Now, if your ground freezes solid as iron over the winter, where you truly cannot dig, then you can dig them before the hard freeze and store them in boxes of damp sand. But where the ground only freezes a little, leave them be and dig as you go. And there is a real beauty in this beyond the ease of it. A potato dug and stored begins to age the moment it leaves the ground, going soft and sprouting and wanting watching. But a sunchoke left in the earth stays as fresh as the day it grew, holding right there in the cold ground in perfect keeping, asking nothing of you. You are not storing a harvest at all. You are simply leaving it growing where it sits and taking it as you please. There is no other crop quite like it for that. A larder that keeps itself in the ground through the whole hard winter, and a body need only walk out with a fork to fill the pot. And there is a fourth way it beats the potato, for this crop acts as a perennial, coming back year after year on its own. Once you have a patch going, you keep it coming forever, simply by leaving some tubers in the ground or replanting a few of what you dig, and up it comes again next year with no fresh buying of seed and almost no effort. Plant it once near enough and harvest it for the rest of your life. That is the old way, the wise way, the plant once, eat for years way that suited everything the old people believed in. Now this is a crop the old people prized for exactly these reasons, for it never failed them. In a hard year, a lean year, when other crops might fail, this tough, prolific thing kept right on giving, storing itself in the ground, asking nothing, feeding the family through the winter. It is the very picture of a dependable, self-reliant food, the kind of crop a body can lean on and never be let down. And that is worth more than folks today reckon. A crop that cannot fail and stores itself is a treasure on any homestead. So, let me show you how to grow it, for it could not be simpler. You start with a few of the tubers themselves, just as you would plant a potato from a seed potato. Pick nice, smooth, firm tubers with plenty of buds, the little eyes on them, the same as you would choose a good seed potato. You plant them toward the end of winter into ground that drains decently. Now here is a good word. This plant grows well even in poor ground. It is that undemanding. But if you can work in some well-rotted manure or compost first, it will reward you with even more tubers. So, improve the soil if you can, though it will forgive you if you cannot. You set each tuber about 6 inches deep and space them roughly 1.5 feet apart each way. A bit closer if your patch is small, a bit further if you have room. Then cover them over, and that is near the whole of it. If a tuber you mean to plant is large, you can cut it into pieces with a couple of buds on each, the way you would cut a seed potato, and each piece will grow. So, a few tubers go a long way. And do not fret over getting it just so, for this is the most forgiving plant there is. It will grow from near any bit of tuber set in near any ground. I have seen them come up thick and strong from tubers a man missed in the digging and never meant to plant at all. You would have a hard time failing with this crop if you tried. Between then and fall, they grow away with almost no fuss from you. They start timid at first, then whoosh, they shoot up with a speed you have never seen in any crop, faster even than corn. As the young shoots come up, you can lay a mulch of grass clippings or some such around them, which helps hold the moisture and keep the weeds down. though in truth the plant grows so tall and thick so fast that it soon shades out most weeds on its own, smothering them under its own great canopy, which is one more way it spares you work. A few weeks in, it needs no weeding at all, for nothing much can grow in its shade. And if your ground is very dry, give them a drink to power that great growth, though in ordinary ground they need little. Through the summer they grow tremendously tall, 10 feet and more, and burst into a profusion of cheery yellow flowers in the late summer, for they are kin to the sunflower, and you can see the family likeness plain in those tall stalks and yellow blooms. And here is a bit of plain, true history on the name, for it is a curious one. The Jerusalem artichoke is not from Jerusalem at all, nor is it any kin to the globe artichoke, that thistle they grow for its flower bud. The name is most likely a worn-down corruption of an old Italian word for the sunflower, girasol, meaning the thing that turns to the sun. And over the years in English, mouths girasol became Jerusalem. And the artichoke part of the name came simply because the tuber tastes a good deal like the globe artichoke. So, the whole name is something of a happy accident, but it has stuck, and sunchoke is the plainer name some give it for its sunflower kin. So they are a handsome thing in their own right, and the bees love the flowers dearly, and you may cut some to bring indoors without hurting your harvest a bit. Now, I must give you the honest warning on this crop, for it is a real one. This plant grows so tall and so vigorous that it will flop over and shade out and crowd whatever grows near it. So you do not want it standing among your other crops, where it will bully them. And more than that, it spreads, for any little tuber left in the ground grows again. So, a patch will widen and creep and can become a downright nuisance, hard to be rid of once it is established, for the smallest bit left behind comes back. So, the wise thing is to give it its own dedicated bed off to the side, away from your other crops, or even grow it in a large container, a half-barrel or some such, anything that keeps it in bounds and keeps it from taking over your garden. And because it stands so tall, there is a clever use you can make of that very thing, planting a row of it to serve as a tall summer screen, or a windbreak to shelter lower crops behind it, or to screen off a view you would rather not see, for it makes a fine green wall in a single season. So its great height, which is a trouble among your beds, can be turned to good use planted apart with purpose. But contained it must be one way or another, for left loose among the garden, it is more bully than blessing. Plant it where you are content to let it live for good in a corner of its own, and contain it, and it will be a joy rather than a pest. That is the one real caution, and you heed it. For folks who plant it carelessly among their beds come to regret it. Come the end of the season, when the foliage dies back and browns off with the first frosts, you cut the tall stems right down to the ground, leaving a little stump a few inches high, so you know where the plants stand once the tops are gone. For you will want to find them under the snow and bare ground come deep winter. The cut stems you can lay over the patch as a mulch, or carry to the compost. And then you dig the tubers as you want them through the winter, a clump at a time. Dig a clump, take what you need for the pot, knock off the dirt, and leave the rest in the ground for next time, both to eat later in the winter and to grow again next year. Now a word on eating them, for they are a fine food, slightly sweet, slightly nutty, with a rich savoury taste, and very good for you besides. You can roast them, which is a fine way, or do as I love best and blend them into a soup, for they make a soup with a lovely rich depth of flavour. You can eat them raw too, grated or cubed into a salad, crisp like a water chestnut. Or you can ferment them, slice them up with a little onion and garlic and salt into a brine, like a kraut or a kimchi, and let them ferment and keep a good while. They want only a light scrubbing before cooking, no peeling needed, for the skin is thin and good. Just scrub off the dirt from the knobs, and they are ready. They cook up tender and sweet, and that rich savoury depth they give a soup is something you cannot get from a potato, a flavour all their own. So though most folks prefer the plain potato day to day for a special rich soup or a fine roasted dish, the sunchoke has a taste the potato cannot touch. A versatile thing in the kitchen, raw or roasted or souped or fermented. And I must be honest with you about one thing, for it is the very reason this fine crop is not more grown, and I would rather tell you plain than have it surprise you. These tubers have in them a kind of fibre called inulin, which is genuinely good for the gut and the digestion, but which does not agree with everyone and can leave some folks rather windy and uncomfortable, if you take my meaning. That is the honest truth of it, and the plain reason they fell out of favour. But there are ways to ease that. Harvesting the tubers after a few good hard frosts have hit them softens that effect, for the cold changes the fibre, and fermenting them, as I mentioned, eases it further still. So if you are new to them, go gentle at first. Eat a modest amount, take them after frost, and let your body grow used to them. Most folks find that with a little getting used to, they do just fine, and the digestion is the better for that good fibre in the long run. Now let me say the small, honest word about why such a fine, easy, dependable old crop fell out of the common knowing while everyone grows the potato. Not to rile you up, just so you see the shape of it. Part of it is that windy trouble I spoke of, fair enough. But part of it is the same old story. The potato is a great crop of commerce, grown and bagged and sold by the millions of pounds, with a whole industry built upon it. The seed potatoes sold each spring, the whole trade of it. And the Jerusalem artichoke, well, there is little money in a crop that plants itself once and comes back free forever. That stores itself in the ground, needing no shelf, nor bin, nor trade. That a body can grow in a corner and never buy again. You cannot build much of a business on a thing that gives itself away year after year. So nobody pushed it. Nobody bred it and bagged it and advertised it. And it simply slipped out of the common growing while the potato got all the telling. I'm not saying a man schemed to bury it. No one had to. It is worse than a conspiracy because it is a system nobody had to coordinate. It simply pays to sell the seed potato every spring and pays nothing to teach a crop that replants itself for free. And so this fine old thing went quietly ungrown, kept alive mostly by old gardeners and plain folk who never stopped. So there it is, the Jerusalem artichoke, a crop that beats the potato for ease and hardiness and dependability. That gives a tremendous harvest from a tiny patch. Stores itself in the ground through the winter, comes back year after year for almost no work, and feeds you well besides. Give it its own bed and keep it in bounds. Harvest after the frosts, and you will have a dependable food crop on your place for the rest of your days. It is one of the great forgotten treasures of the old garden, and it is high time more folks grew it again. Now, I want to hear from you, and I ask honest because I learn the whole country from these comments. Tell me in the comments below, have you ever grown or even tasted a Jerusalem artichoke, and will you give this fine old crop a try? And tell me your county and how hard your ground freezes in winter, because that decides whether you can leave them in the ground all season or must dig and store them in sand before the hard freeze. And I like to map it by where you all write from. I read everyone, and I learn the cold corners of the country from you. Next time, I want to show you how to store your root crops the old way through the winter. The potatoes and carrots and beets and turnips in sand and straw and the root cellar. The old methods that kept a family in good vegetables clear through to spring with no machine at all. For there is a whole art to keeping the harvest that most folks have forgotten. The old people grew crops like this one, tough and prolific and self-storing and faithful. Crops that asked little and gave much and never let a family down, because they had to lean on what they grew. There is a deep wisdom in a crop that plants itself once and feeds you for a lifetime from a corner of the garden, fresh from the ground all winter long. The garden that holds a faithful crop like this is the garden that remembers how the old people fed themselves through the lean times. The people who built this country with their hands knew that, and we are only just starting to remember it.